Hi Devs. In this video we're doing a readability review and we are reviewing test code. This code is written in C#, but the concepts that we're going to talk about will apply to all languages. And as usual, I have modified the code slightly to protect the innocent and for brevity. So here's the code. It's a little bit longer. C# is a little bit more verbose than other languages, so I will scroll through the code, and I suggest that you pause the video, take a look at it, and think about how you might improve these tests. Okay, we are back. So when you are reviewing a test, there are several questions that you want to ask yourself. First of all, can I easily figure out the three important steps that most tests have? Those are arrange, act, and assert, where arrange is setting everything up for the test, act is actually exercising the code that you're trying to test, and assert is checking afterwards to make sure that the things happen that you wanted to have happen. Next, you want to ask, does the test actually test what it says it does? We often call this the happy path testing. Another thing you want to look at is, will the test pass even if the code it is testing is wrong? Another question that is very important is trying to figure out if the test actually tests everything that it should. Are there paths or edge cases that it fails to test? So let's look at these. In this first test, the change password test, let's look. First of all, can I easily tell the different steps? Well, they have used comments, arrange, act, and assert to make it stand out very clearly. That's fine. I personally no longer use the comments because I find them a little bit too verbose, and I just put blank lines in between the different areas, and it's usually pretty obvious what's happening there. Next, let's ask, are we testing the happy path correctly? Well, so we look through here. We see that we're setting it up and we're calling these things, and then we're asserting at the very end, did we get an OK status response? Well, okay, that's good, but our next question really fails on, and that is, does the code fail when something is wrong in the code that I am testing? See, if you see here in this final assert, all we're asserting is that we got an OK status code back. Well, what if the server actually didn't change the password and it just sent us an OK status response? So there's an awful lot missing here that the code being tested could go badly wrong and we would never know it. Let's now ask, are there things that it's not testing for? Well, there's no check for error handling. There's no check for error responses. There are some edge cases it doesn't look at. It doesn't look at nulls or returning nulls or things like that. Maybe those are in other tests in the file, so you want to scan through and look for those. Maybe those things are tested, but in this sample that I've given you here, they are not. All right, so let's look at the next test, the mail merge test. Are the arrange, act, and assert steps obvious? Well, no, there's all this logic going on in here, this looping. It's not clear what's happening here. We have an assert right here in the middle, and suddenly there's code afterwards. What is that doing? We have to study that pretty hard and figure out what it's trying to do. All right, let's check the happy path. The happy path in this case, in a mail merge, would be that I merge the data that I'm trying to put in to the template and making sure that the template actually writes out the data that we gave it. So let's look. We're passing it in these variables, but there's nothing in here that asserts to see whether it merged correctly. In fact, if you look at this code in this if statement after the assert, you see that what they do is they just write it out to a log file. And I guess they're expecting some human to come along and look at it and make sure it's correct. That is clearly not a good way to write an automated test. And again, let's ask, are there things that are missing that should have been checked? And as before, some of the same things, handling nulls, maybe the keys are missing or empty, like this name and email. What does it do if I leave them out? Does it do something that's reasonable? What if the template that I give it is invalid? There's nothing here. Again, those might be done in other tests, but you should look for those. Okay, so take a moment and think about what you might do to rewrite these tests to make them more understandable, and then I will show you mine. So let's look at how I modified the change password test. I first of all got rid of those unnecessary comments and just used blank lines in between the sections to clean it up. Otherwise, though, the code is pretty much the same. I still do the same in the setup, and I still do the same in the actions. But now in the asserts, I'm doing more. I'm looking at the response and I'm making sure that I got a response back that was what I expected it to be. This way, I know that the password was actually changed. All right, let's take a look now at the mail merge test. In this one, the arrange, act, and assert sections were not very clear, so I just separated them out with a blank line so that you can tell which is which. The arrange is pretty much the same. The act is pretty much the same. Now, though, my assert, where the biggest problem was in this test, has been dramatically improved. Now I'm not only checking to see if we got a proper merge, but I'm checking to make sure that the merged result actually contains the keys that I put into the template. So those are some of the things that I would do to improve these tests and make the tests more readable.